episode, Terrence discusses the legal market and data security with Shawn Helms, head for technology and outsourcing practice at McDermott, Will, and Emery.
Hey everybody, hi, my name is Terrence Shaw, and I'm here with Shawn Helms, and we wanted to do a little discussion today about cloud computing and data security, and kind of pick Shawn's mind from a legal perspective of what that means.
And probably the hottest topic around has been cloud computing. Cloud computing isn't new. I think a lot of people will tell you cloud computing has been around as long as the internet's been around. But I think it's the way that people are now really looking at the cloud as a solution to replace a lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the things that they have historically built up in their in-house IT department. And so it's this kind of convergence of IT and internet technologies with the push in general to move to the IT outsourcing space.
Okay. Yeah.
And so more and more people are moving to quote cloud, and what does that really mean, and how does that impact an organization? And you're right. There's this sort of natural tension to take advantage of cloud technologies while at the same time understanding that you're giving up a piece of control to do that.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing that play out in a lot of different spaces. When you were walking in here, I was kind of noting that on the front of the Wall Street Journal today actually is an Oracle ad about cloud computing, and this ad or a story on cloud computing tends to be on the front of the Wall Street Journal almost every day now. It's just kind of more evidence of it is the hot thing to talk about.
Oh yeah, yeah. So talk to me a little bit about right. Well, I think there's some general security concerns or fears when people hear just the things that happen. So Target.
Right.
The other, a couple of months ago, lost a bunch of credit card numbers, and credit cards were compromised, and so that isn't really maybe even was in the cloud or not, but those kind of tendencies of figure out, well, now if that we can't manage it ourselves, how is somebody else going to manage it better than we can?
Sure.
And leads to some natural fears and tendencies. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, the data breaches in general in the past, call it half dozen years, have become more and more in the public limelight. A lot of that is as a result of there have been different states that have passed data breach laws that if there is a data breach or a disclosure of personally identifiable data, a company is obligated to take steps in order to mitigate that.
Okay.
And those can be very, very costly.
Yep.
I know Forresters did a study one time, and their conclusion was if there's a data breach, it can cost over $400 per data subject.
$400 per piece of data, or just per person?
Per person. Per data subject.
Yeah, but that can get 22 million people or
right.
It starts to be a price tag associated to that.
And a lot of that is because if you look at these data breach laws, it not only requires you to mail out a notice, but it can require you to take out credit monitoring.
Okay.
It can require you to sort of take steps to protect that person. In connection with that, when the notice goes out, there has to be a number for people to call in order to make an inquiry about their data. And so maybe a company doesn't have a call center in place in order to field those calls.
Okay.
And there can be all kinds of other reputational damage, all these soft costs. Now we're at a little bit of a tipping point, I think, where people are not sure that they can take steps in order to protect that data.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it's weird when you talk about the potential for cloud computing, there's kind of two camps. There's sort of camp one that we can never move to cloud computing because then our data is not within our control.
Right.
And then there's camp two, and they say we almost have to move to cloud computing because there's no steps that we can take as a company that can protect our data as well as a company that's in the business of protecting
doing it. Let's talk about your industry for a minute. I like the legal industry because they're always seeming to be the tail the tail end of the dog here, right?
Yes,
they don't want to move to anything, and they're the most difficult with
right.
everything, right? You know,
Yeah.
So what have you seen in the legal industry about I would think that they would be the ones that would be the hardest to get there, but I think also the most stringent around rules and procedures and guidelines.
And they basically put in place sort of a general reasonableness standard, acknowledging that people were going to be using cloud computing, but you had to take steps in order to protect data.
Okay.
Okay. No specific guidance.
Okay.
No specific prohibition, but in an acknowledgement that your obligations don't change in the new environment. You still have all the same obligations that you had under the old.
Right. Makes sense.
And so what does that mean for the adoption of cloud computing? Well, I'll tell you that lawyers, like everyone else in the business world, are increasingly mobile. And we're looking for ways to get access to data on our mobile devices, and utilization of cloud computing technologies, especially for large productions of documents, sort of large amounts of data that are part of these sort of transactions and cases all the time. Cloud computing is a logical step in order to store all that information in the cloud and be able to download it on your mobile phone, your iPad, whatever you might have on the go.
Okay.
To utilize cloud computing, so you can download an app and have sort of easy access to that without sort of building a special program in order to get access to that.
Right.
All those are very attractive options to law firms. But there remains a tension.
Right.
And the tension is, okay, if we move to the cloud, are we taking the proper steps in order to protect that data? If there's a data breach, are we going to be blamed for that? Will there be sort of malpractice lawsuits and bad press and all the things that can come along with the data breach?
Yeah.
And so these major law firms are hesitant to move to the cloud, sort of despite the countervailing pressures of needing to really move to the cloud in order to solve the business problem.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit in limbo now. I mean, what I will say is lawyers want to adopt cloud technologies, and law firms and law firm management are still sort of pushing back on that.
Okay.
And so we're in a weird situation now where people are utilizing cloud technologies that are not approved by law firms.
Right. Rogue. They've gone rogue.
Yeah, they've sort of gone rogue out of necessity a lot of times.
Right. Shawn, thanks for taking the time. We'll have to come out again and talk more about it, but I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. Find out more at wirevibe.com.